Hi and welcome to the Shrunk Universe. Do not hesitate to like, subscribe and share the video if you are new. Activate the bell to not miss my next videos. Make yourself comfortable, and enjoy the video. Here we go. If there is a myth, a legend, a recurring story on our planet within our humanity is undoubtedly the flood. This ancient episode of our history is present in all cultures: Middle Eastern, European, Asian, South American, Nordic, and even Polynesian cultures. If we can admit that many localized flooding phenomena could have caused a kind of recurrence of the deluge, it would seem that there was a more important ancient catastrophe than others, with more massive and more widespread destruction by the waters having probably impacted a much larger geographical area than simple local vintages. Today, firmly anchored in Western popular culture, the myth of the ancient flood has reached our modern civilization via the public Old Testament and the story of Noah. If the explanations of this text can be very perplexing to the real actions that were undertaken by the protagonist Noah and his legendary ark welcoming a couple of each animal of the earth, some much older texts could enlighten us on the reality of this deluge. Long before the writing of the Hebraic Old Testament, the civilizations of Sumer and Mesopotamia give us a simply thrilling story, to the point that more than 4,500 years later this text is still officially studied by our 6th graders. It is the Epic of Gilgamesh. So if this thrilling work and fascinating give us a real possible source of the mythology that will follow, it has above all the distinction of being the first written form known nickname, a planetary catastrophe that would have submerged the earth underwater, the first description of the legendary myth of the deluge, therefore, comes to us from an ancient text 4,500 years old. The story of the Epic of Gilgamesh has some differences from the biblical text, but the similarities between the two stories are such that it seems inconceivable that the anteriority of the Epic of Gilgamesh is not the basis of this Hebrew story. Everyone has already asked themselves if the information contained in this story legend of the deluge was possible, how Noah could have brought a couple of each animal on earth into his archipelago, how he had been able to make them live together, to feed them, water them during several weeks that the deluge lasted. But that do we know from the rest of the story of Noah? Where did he go, and what became of him who had nevertheless been chosen by the gods to survive and perpetuate humanity? The biblical texts are unfortunately not very eloquent on the future of this character. Oh, how important in history, yet the question arises, what has become Noah? And since the texts of the Old Testament do not allow us to answer this question, it seems the logic of turning to the previous stories of those who gave birth to this world-famous myth, and the Epic of Gilgamesh offer us all the answers to this question. The precision and the quantity of information contained in these writings indeed make it possible to discover the place where Noah was 4,500 years ago. The idea is simple. Since Gilgamesh, illustrious king of Uruk and historical figures, met the survivor of the deluge at the end of his quest for truth, we just have to retrace his geographical route to determine the location of Noah's place of exile. About the name of this chosen one of this survivor designated by the gods to save humanity and sustain our species is not originally Noah but Utnapishtim. We can therefore consider that this name is that of the original Noah. For more information, Gilgamesh during this famous epic decides to go in search of truth, leading a kind of personal introspection in the face of his fear of death through travel and ranks, which will lead him to a distant island where resides Utnapishtim, known at the time to have obtained immortality from the gods. This quest begins with the departure of Gilgamesh, king of Uruk, from his city, so we know the initial geographical point. Since the city of Rock is in Mesopotamia, in what is today the south of Iraq, the text stipulates that the king began his wanderings by heading east. He quickly reaches a mountain range where he will be a horde of lion. This mountain range corresponds to a large massif located west of Iran. If the presence of lions in this part of the world may seem to us today not logical, it should be known that the era of distribution of these animals have already been 10 from the flute to India via the Middle East. It is therefore not extraordinary that Gilgamesh there is more than 4,500 years ago come across lions in this part of the world. The king of the Uruk continues his journey eastward and reaches the twin of colossal mountains whose summits touch the sky. These are probably the gigantic mountains of the Karakoram chain mountains located in Pakistan with some of the highest peaks on the planet. Well, I'll spare you the encounter with the creatures half man half scorpions and Remy man behind, because there for once I have no plausible explanation if we base ourselves on the information in our possession. Gilgamesh's quest there for the moment leads from Mesopotamia to the Hindu-Pakistani border. It's already starting to make a little All Saints Day dress, and yet you'll see the grandpa hasn't arrived yet. Epic then states that Gilgamesh goes through those lush forests home to incredibly rich flora and fauna where he will meet Mesopotamian sun god Shamash of justice and truth. This precise geographical location can be attributed to the garden of the ancient Hindu gods called the Gardens of Gems. It would be located in the present center of India in the province of Telangana. The presence in this place is at this time of lush gardens sheltering the ancient gods known to the Duro king can also be associated with the fact that one of the Hanama gods who left Mesopotamia to the east founded their colony following the flood of 12,000 years ago to give men the freedom to found their civilization in the Fertile Crescent, and two, that the Hindu polytheistic civilization also dates back several millennia, corresponding to the exile post-Diluvian of the Mesopotamian gods in this region. In short, our Gilgamesh continues its journey towards the east to reach a huge beach of fine sand that never ends. He will meet the goddess Siduri, who will indicate a precise rating from where the king can reach an island sheltering Uda Utnapishtim, the only human to have obtained immortality from the gods. This naval starting point can be associated with the southern tip of Burma and the Gulf of Bengal. Gilgamesh would have to go up the east coast of India along the Indian Ocean to the Irrawaddy Delta in southern Burma. From this place Gilgamesh takes the sea towards an island. It just so happens that not far from the strait in question, about 300 kilometers away, is an archipelago of islands in the north of the Indian Ocean. These are the Damain Islands. The term Damain refers to the name in Damascus, first denomination of the current human species during its creation by the gods Anunnaki. Gilgamesh will finally arrive on this island and will meet Uda Utnapishtim, who Nazrahim, the legendary myth of the ancient flood which he and his wife survived thanks to the intervention of Enki. The gods would have offered immortality to him and his wife through the fruit of life as compensation and recognition for their mistakes. But if we look at the cults of the islands in Damain, we discover that this place is associated with the Hindu gods Anuman. This ancient deities with the appearance of a monkey is recognized for his value and his abilities both in terms of knowledge and learning and wisdom from a symbolic point of view. Anuman, the monkey god, the ancient, possesses characteristics that can be associated with the image of Uda Utnapishtim, the ape-like appearance, a reminder of course the primary origin of men, the hominids, primitive ape-like used by the admins acquired during the hybridization that generated the human species. The qualitative characteristics of this god are also representative of the criteria that pushed Enki to choose Uda Utnapishtim survive the deluge. The creator god of humanity had indeed set his sights on man as the most able to be saved, the most able to understand, interpret, and apply the words of the gods. The ancient divinity of these distant islands therefore corresponds perfectly both in symbolism and in criteria to the image of Uda Utnapishtim, and the course of Gilgamesh seems to lead us directly there. If all this is right, it would mean that the ancient survivor of the flood, the one who was chosen, is designated by the god Enki to survive the planetary catastrophe, the one and only who would have received from the Anunnaki gods immortality. The legendary Uda Utnapishtim would have exiled themselves on the islands in Damain in the north of the Indian Ocean, not far from the colony post-diluvial gods participating in the creation of Hinduism, one of the greatest cultures. Polytheism still in force today. The Epic of Gilgamesh would be so old, over 4,500 years, has perhaps give us all the keys to discover the place where the one we know today as Noah is distributed in exile following the flood on the islands in Damain. Thanks for watching Shrunk Universe. Stay tuned for the next video.